Hey everybody. Okay, so I got a little extra time right now. So I'm gonna try and make this a one-part video, but it might be a two, depending on how the time of my camera goes. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna explain how to make the kunais that I do. And there's a lot of different variations, and that all depends. If you could hear that, that was the Air Force Base that I live right by. So anyways, there's a lot of different variations and sizes. It all depends on what kind of steel you can get, but I'm going to show the basic kunai that I do that is relatively easy to make as long as you have the certain tools, and fairly cheap from what I know. Depending on where you get your steel from and everything. So we'll go over the basic things. I make a lot of mine from files, and you can either buy these brand new at Home Depot or Lowe's, or you can do what I normally do, and like I said in my last video, I go to a flea market. You can get some good old files for 50 cents, and you can get some pretty large, like 14-inch files that are really wide, that are really good steel. The one I'm going to be using today is this. It's called the Handy file. I think I got it at Lowe's or Home Depot for like $7 or something like that. And I'm just going to use this one because it already has a pretty decent handle on there, and it's just easier to work with right now. But you're going to need a file or some kind of steel. I'm pretty much going to be explaining how to do it with a file though. A Sharpie. There we go. A drill. Some kind of cutting tool like I discussed in my last video with the big grinder that I have, which is right here. A grinder or sander. Heat or torch, and a magnet. These last two, depending on how you want to do it, I'll explain that you might not need it. I'm not going to be needing it to make this one, so we'll discuss that when that time comes. So the first thing you're going to want to do is take your file, like this one, and you're going to want to draw out your basic design. So I'm going to take this, and let's see, I'm going to want to make this one with a rounded, a circular handle. And see how I'm going to use this thickness right here. I'm going to bring this up to the top. You can measure this all out if you want. I'm just going to freehand it because I've made enough of these to where I kind of know what's going on. Bring that down a little bit. So that's going to be my handle. I usually make them around 4 inches. Somewhere around there is good. And then I'm going to want to take out my design. I'm not going to use the whole file. So you figure that's right there. Let's see, we'll go right about here. Then for the end point, I'll probably make it about that long. Like I said, there's a lot of different sizes and shapes and dimensions to make all these. So it's whatever your preference is. If you have a wider piece of steel, you can make it the nice wide kunai. This is just going to be a shorter version. Something like that. Now from here, Depending on what kind of steel you have and everything else, and what kind of cutting tool, that's when the heat or your torch is going to come in handy. I have this cutting tool, so I don't need to soften this file. This is, you know, hardened right now, but these cutting wheels will blow right through this, so I don't need to bother with any of that. If you do need to heat it up because you're going to be cutting it with, you know, a hacksaw or something like that, to where it's not a hard cutting wheel, you're going to want to take your torch and you're going to want to heat the whole file up till, where's my magnet at? Till it's non-magnetic. So if I'm heating this up, I'd have this placed in my vise, and I'd keep heating this up until it didn't stick. Once it doesn't stick, set it down on the concrete or on a steel slab or any place safe and just let it air cool. Once that's done, you've reheated this to a point to where it has no more magnetic properties to it and it's softer. Something to do with the molecular structure of the steel or whatever, but that'll basically soften the steel so you can cut it a lot easier. You're also going to want to do that to drill your hole bigger if you want to. You're going to want to soften that up, and then it'll be able to drill a hell of a lot easier. You don't really need to do that. That's why I chose this file, because it already has a hole in there, and I have this cutting tool that I can blow right through all these. So that's pretty much it for that. I'm probably going to make another video on this because I see this is going to take a little bit longer, but I'm going to pop this in my vise. Try and get a decent view of this. And I'm going to start cutting everything out. Doesn't need to be exact, just a rough cut. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then in the next video I will show you how to touch everything up, get everything ground in, and all that fun stuff, and show the edges of this, show how to do all that. So I know this video is a little bit shorter, but the cutting takes a while, and I don't want to spend, you know, 10 minutes of my video of me cutting out a piece of steel, which it's pretty basic if you follow the lines, not that difficult. So far, so good. You got your file, got it all marked out. If you needed to soften it, you know, make sure you do that. Got the rest of your tools ready. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and we'll be back in the next video with a rough design of what this is going to look like.